Welcome to the formulize video for importing. So the first thing to know about importing is that it's permission controlled. We're currently logged in as one of the Ranger class users according to the permission structure and group structure we set up earlier, and they don't have import permissions, so we don't see an import button over here. The supervisor users do have import permissions, so if we log out and then log in as one of the supervisors using whatever password you made for them, then we can get to the form again, and there's the import button. So if we click that, we get a screen with a little pop-up window with several 3 steps and lots of information in it. The first step is to get a template file for working with the information that you want to import. There's a bunch of details here that you can read through about things to keep in mind and how to make modifications to it. And step 3, choose the file and upload it so your changes go into the database. So let's start by right-clicking and saving a template for adding new entries. And we'll just save that there along with some others. And there we go. Our file opens up for us. Just make these a bit bigger. Now every import template has this user who made the entry column, and that is it's very important for declaring who the entries are going to belong to. And that controls scoping and other important things. If you've seen the scoping video, you'll know that ownership and group owner. The user ownership and the group ownership of entries is very relevant in some situations. If you leave that blank, then it's going to assume that you are the owner or the creator of the entries. Now, dates. Dates are somewhat tricky sometimes when dealing with especially Excel, the way it likes to automatically format things. You could just edit this CSV file in a text editor. It is a plain text file, although it's somewhat easier to edit it as a spreadsheet. But if we do that, Excel wants to change the format on us, and formulize will only accept a year, month, day format with a 4-digit year. So if we select that whole column and right-click to get our context menu, and we click format cells, we can tell it to format that as a date, year, month, day, and then we'll get them looking the way we want. You can also tell it to do this as text. You could say treat this whole column as text, and then just type in the exact dates you want in the way that you want. Either way should work fine, although your mileage may vary depending on what version of Excel and just other features that'll be in effect on your computer. So there's some dates. Let's put in the time of day. Let's make that night and morning, and there we go. Some animals, a rather eclectic series of animals. You can learn more about that in the video on creating forms and elements, where we discuss the unusual series of animals in our system. So there's a spreadsheet with some data ready to be imported. We can save that. Excel says, are you sure you want to save it as a CSV? Yes, we do. If you save it as a actual Excel spreadsheet, you won't be able to import it because it needs to be in the text-based CSV format in order to import. So now that we've done that, we can go down to step 3 and pick the file, and there it is. Upload, and it gives us an error. If you've been following along very closely through all the videos, you'll know that this is a problem where it says morn there. It says it found morn, but it was expecting either morning, midday, evening, or night. So formulize will validate the information you're putting in against what the definitions are for those elements. Definition for that element is it's got 4 choices. Those are the choices. If the data is outside that possible choices, then it's going to give you an error. So having fixed that, and did we save that? Let's just make sure. Save. We can go back. We can pick the file again. You can also just reload that page. Usually F5 is the reload. But if we upload again, then well, if you see behind the scenes here, the actual list of entries reloaded with this new data now that we've uploaded it, and there it is, dates intact. So that's sort of half of the importing story, creating new entries. The other half is that you can use the import system to modify existing entries. So if you want to modify, this is your two template options. You can either add entries or update them. If you want to add entries, you do what we just did, or if you want to update entries, then click here to get a template. So some things to know about templates when you're importing. Templates are going to include all the columns, no matter what columns are visible. If you saw some of the previous videos, you'll know that when you are exporting data normally, you're only going to see the columns that are visible when you're exporting. So if you have two columns currently selected, you're going to export just those two columns. But when you're doing an import operation like we are here, and you're getting the template file, that template file will include all the columns, no matter what. You don't have to interact with all the columns. You could delete a bunch of the columns if you're not concerned with the data that's in them, but the file that you get will include all of them. However, the rows that are there, as it says, it's only going to include the rows that are currently visible. So if you want to modify a set of entries, you can zero in on them, maybe by changing the scoping option or by a search, and then you click the import button, and you'll get an import template just with those entries in them. So we'll get this file, and it's downloaded, and if we switch to Excel, then here it is. Now you'll notice, in addition to the user, which is currently one of the visible columns, see we have those four visible. Well, yes, what's going on here is we have these three columns are all the columns in the form, plus it's giving us the ownership field, plus it's giving us the ID number. It's a new field that wasn't in the other spreadsheet. And as it says, do not remove or modify this column. The ownership, the ID number is critical for associating the these changes back with existing entries. So you don't want to change that. And there's our dates, a little mangled by Excel again. So first we'll fix those. Format, date, there we go. And we'll just make some simple changes here, change that, and maybe change this date to 29th. It is a leap year after all. So if we save that as a, yes, we know it's a CSV, that's okay. Then if we go back to the import screen, import pop-up, then we can choose this file and open that, and if we click upload, then it imports and it reloads this, and there's our changes. Now it says evening and February 29th. So importing is a really powerful tool, especially for batch modifying large number of entries. Has some obvious uses, but just remember that importing is permission controlled, and since it does let people alter lots of information at once, you do want to be careful when and how you hand that out, and make sure that the people who are doing it understand understand the data structure, understand what options are available to them, and are detail oriented. the spreadsheets, they're interpreted literally, and exact spelling and punctuation counts. Otherwise, you're going to get lots of validation errors and so on. So it's just something to be very careful about, but it is certainly one of the more powerful features in formulize.